The idea of the internet still feels strangely weightless. Signals flying through the air, invisible connections linking devices, information floating somewhere above everything. It's easy to picture data drifting through space like radio waves, bouncing between satellites, moving effortlessly across the planet. That image is clean, futuristic, and completely misleading. Because the reality is far heavier, far more physical, and far more surprising. Almost everything that moves across the global internet doesn't go up into space at all. It goes down, deep down, across the ocean floor, through a massive network of cables that quietly carry nearly all international data traffic. Messages, videos, financial transactions, cloud services, entire economies, none of it is floating. It's all traveling through glass fibers laid across the seabed. And once that reality clicks, the internet stops feeling abstract and starts feeling like infrastructure, real infrastructure. The kind that can break, be damaged, be controlled, and even fought over. Think about what happens when a message is sent across the world. It doesn't shoot straight into orbit. It leaves a device, travels through a local network, enters a national fiber system, and eventually finds its way to a coastal landing station. From there, it enters a submarine cable and begins a journey across thousands of miles of ocean. All of it happening in milliseconds. All of it completely invisible. That journey is not simple. It's not magical. It's engineered. Beneath the surface, the ocean floor is wrapped in a vast web of cables stretching for hundreds of thousands of miles. Some estimates place the total length at over 850,000 miles, forming one of the most extensive human-built systems on Earth. Other counts show more than 550 individual cable systems spanning roughly 1.4 million kilometers, enough to wrap around the planet dozens of times. And these aren't just passive wires, they are active, powered systems constantly transmitting enormous volumes of data at incredible speeds. Every second, pulses of light race through these fibers, carrying everything from video calls to global financial trades. Inside each cable, the real magic happens. At the core are ultra-thin strands of glass, thinner than a human hair. Data doesn't move through them as electricity, but as light, tiny flashes turning on and off billions of times per second, encoding information into patterns that can travel across entire oceans. It's not metaphorical. It's literal light, bouncing within the glass through a principle known as total internal reflection. That's how continents stay connected. But those light signals don't just travel endlessly without help. Along the cable, every 40 to 55 miles, there are repeaters, small but critical devices that amplify the signal and keep it from fading. These repeaters are powered through the cable itself, using a copper layer that carries electricity along the entire route. Without them, the signal would weaken and disappear long before reaching the other side of the ocean. So even something as simple as sending a message relies on a chain of precision engineering, all hidden beneath miles of water, and that water is not forgiving. The ocean is one of the harshest environments on the planet. Extreme pressure, total darkness, corrosive salt water, shifting seabeds, and constant geological activity. Yet these cables are expected to survive there for decades. Most are designed to last around 25 years, quietly operating without interruption. To handle that, each cable is built in layers. The outer shell is made of tough plastic to resist corrosion. In shallower areas, where human activity poses a risk, the cable is reinforced with steel armor. Closer to shore, it's even buried beneath the seabed to protect it from anchors, fishing nets, and other hazards. Out in the deep ocean, things are different. There, the cable is lighter, more flexible, and simply rests on the seafloor. At those depths, human interference is rare, but the pressure is immense. Still, these cables endure, carrying the digital world through an environment that would crush most technology instantly. And laying them down in the first place is an operation that feels closer to a space mission than a construction project. Before a cable is ever deployed, engineers spend years mapping the ocean floor. Routes are carefully chosen to avoid underwater mountains, earthquake zones, and unstable terrain. Once the path is finalized, specialized ships take over. These cable-laying ships are massive and highly specialized. Some are equipped with enormous rotating turntables capable of holding up to 5,000 tons of cable. As the ship moves along its route, the cable is slowly fed into the ocean, laid down with precision so it doesn't tangle or stretch. In shallow waters, additional equipment comes into play. A seabed plow is used to dig trenches and bury the cable beneath the ocean floor. This is critical near coastlines where most damage tends to happen, because despite all the engineering, these cables are not invincible. Most damage doesn't come from dramatic events. It comes from everyday activity. Fishing trawlers dragging nets across the seabed, ship anchors dropped in the wrong place. These seemingly routine actions can sever a cable and disrupt connectivity across entire regions. And when that happens, fixing it is anything but simple. Repairing an undersea cable requires specialized ships, skilled crews, and often extreme diving operations. In some cases, divers are sent down to the ocean floor to work directly on the cable. For shallow repairs, that's already difficult. But deeper repairs require something even more intense: saturation diving. This is where divers live in pressurized chambers for days or even weeks before descending. Their bodies are slowly adjusted to the pressure at depth, allowing them to operate hundreds or even thousands of feet underwater without suffering from decompression sickness. Once ready, they are transported to the worksite in pressurized diving bells and carry out repairs in conditions that are as hostile as they are isolated. Sometimes even that isn't enough. Special underwater habitats are deployed, structures placed over the damaged section of cable. Water is pumped out, creating a dry working environment where repairs can be made with precision. It's an elaborate process requiring coordination, training, and time. And during that time, entire regions can feel the impact. There have been moments in the past where cable disruptions caused significant slowdowns or outages across multiple countries. In extreme cases, internet access dropped dramatically, affecting businesses, communication, and daily life. It's a stark reminder that the global network depends on physical systems that can fail. That's where the illusion of the cloud begins to fall apart, because the cloud isn't floating anywhere. It lives in data centers, massive facilities filled with servers, connected by fiber networks that ultimately tie back into these submarine cables. Every video streamed, every file uploaded, every online interaction relies on this physical chain. Even something as simple as Wi-Fi is only the final step in a much longer journey. The wireless signal travels a short distance to a router, then into a wired network, and eventually into the global system of cables that spans continents. So the wireless world is only wireless for a few feet. After that, it's entirely dependent on infrastructure that stretches across oceans. And while satellites often capture the imagination, they play a much smaller role in everyday internet traffic. They are essential for certain applications, especially in remote areas, but they simply can't match the speed and capacity of fiber optic cables. Signals sent to satellites must travel tens of thousands of miles into orbit and back, introducing delays that make them less suitable for real-time communication. Submarine cables, on the other hand, offer far greater bandwidth and lower latency. They can carry hundreds of terabits of data per second, making them the backbone of modern connectivity. And that backbone is becoming increasingly important. As demand for data continues to grow, more cables are being built. But something else is changing too. The ownership of these cables is shifting. Where once they were built and managed by telecom consortiums, now major technology companies are taking the lead. Companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft are investing heavily in submarine cable infrastructure, building private networks to support their services. This shift has major implications because these cables are no longer just technical systems. They are strategic assets. Control over data pathways is becoming as important as control over shipping routes or energy supplies. Countries are paying closer attention to where cables land, who owns them, and how they are secured. The ocean floor, once seen as empty and remote, is now part of a global competition. And that competition adds another layer of vulnerability. Because while accidental damage is still the most common threat, the idea of deliberate interference is becoming harder to ignore. Cutting or tapping into cables could disrupt communications, impact economies, or even be used for intelligence gathering. That makes these cables not just infrastructure, but critical infrastructure. And yet, for something so important, they remain almost entirely out of sight. There are no visible signs of them across most of their journey. No markers, no warnings, no indication that beneath the waves lies the system that powers modern life. It's a hidden network, silently doing its job, second by second, day after day. And that hidden nature is part of what makes it so fascinating. Because the internet, often thought of as something intangible, is actually one of the most physical systems ever built. It has geography. It has routes. It has choke points and vulnerabilities. It exists in specific places, shaped by terrain, politics, and engineering decisions. It lives underwater, and understanding that changes the way everything else is seen. Because once the illusion disappears, what's left is something far more complex and far more real. What makes this underwater network even more fascinating is how uneven it really is. It's not just a random web of cables thrown across the ocean floor. It has structure. It has patterns. It has geography in the truest sense. Some regions are heavily connected, with multiple redundant cables ensuring stability and speed. Others rely on just a handful of links, making them far more vulnerable to disruption. Entire countries can depend on a few critical connection points, and if something goes wrong there, the effects ripple outward almost instantly. Certain areas of the ocean have become major data corridors. Narrow passages, coastal choke points, and strategic landing zones carry a disproportionate amount of global traffic. These are the digital equivalents of shipping lanes, where massive volumes of information pass through every second. And just like traditional trade routes, these pathways come with risks. If this kind of deep dive into hidden systems and the real infrastructure behind everyday life caught attention, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay connected for more stories that uncover what's really powering the modern world.